Welcome to the Marketecture podcast. I'm Ari Paparo. I'm joined today by Eric Franchi, and we have a very special guest today. We have a guest who has a higher power, a higher reason for being. We have the Twitter sensation, Ad Tech God, the pseudo-anonymous account that is becoming increasingly influential and popular. So, Mr. God, welcome to the Marketecture podcast.
Thank you, Ari. Thank you, Eric. It's great to be here. As the god of programmatic prophecy, I must say I am humbled to be on your podcast.
I think we're going to call you.
We have a lot of
okay.
ATG, AdTech Yahweh, AdTech Zeus. We haven't figured out what pantheon you're in yet. But first, some sponsor message. So, as our listeners know, we have taken on some sponsors. One of our great sponsors is Flash Talking by MediaOcean. So, Flash Talking used the Marketecture AI, which we announced last week. So, we have an AI at Marketecture TV. You can ask it very complicated questions about ad tech. And they asked our AI to write them an ad for this podcast. So this is getting very meta. So I'm going to do a live reading of the ad that was written by our AI for Flash Talking. So here we go. Hey there, Marketecture fans. Are you tired of your ad campaigns falling flat? Look no further than Flash Talking by MediaOcean. With Flash Talking, you'll be able to create dynamic, engaging ads that will leave your audience begging for more. And let's be real, who doesn't love a little begging? So what are you waiting for? Visit MediaOcean.com/flashtalking to learn more and start creating ads that will make your competitors green with envy. Okay, so that is our ad. That is a paid ad from Flash Talking, but the copy was written by the Marketecture AI. So that's pretty cool. What do you guys think of the ad?
That was great. I mean, having the benefit of seeing the read, you could have had more exclamation points in your voice, but
okay,
great. Yeah, it was great.
Good feedback.
Yeah,
I don't know about the who doesn't love a little begging. That had me a little bit off.
Wouldn't be ad tech if we weren't begging a little bit for some business right now. So I think it was great. I mean, I think that the overall capabilities of AI right now are just incredible, and I think it's only going to get better.
So let's jump into it with ATG. So what inspires you? Why does this account exist? Why are you spending time creating this persona?
This started really during the pandemic. I was locked up at home, surrounded by my family, hearing about all the changes in the market, which looking back now to 2021, mostly, it was really a great time for advertising. We saw an incredible growth in connected TV and streaming. The atmosphere still felt stressful, and I wanted to create an out to just comment the way I wanted to comment and to be a little bit of a jokester about what I think we can laugh about that sometimes isn't the funniest.
So what do you attribute your popularity to? And by popularity, I think you're up around 10,000 followers at this point. So that's pretty.
Oh, no. Much more. Much more.
What's the follower count?
I think I'm over 12. I think I'm over 12.
Wow.
Now.
Yeah, but there's a question I have later on about that, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think the popularity is just asking good questions, poking fun. I think a lot of what you see on LinkedIn is a press release. People tend not to question or really question any company's strategy and what their PR is about. It's mostly clapping hands and just being happy about it. But when you go into Twitter, the conversation's very different. People are willing to push the envelope and they're willing to dispute claims of being the number one product or solution in market. And I think it creates a great dialogue that's very different than what you experience with LinkedIn in particular.
You also have a great swag. So unlike a lot of other pseudo-anonymous accounts, you have swag. You're sending people stickers. You have T-shirts, baby onesies. What's going on there? You're creating a little business out of this thing.
I've made $0 off this account, and it was a goal of mine not to monetize it. It's actually cost me more. The logo I created was actually voted on. I ran a poll and asked hair or no hair, facial hair, what colors do you like? And it actually came back to what you're seeing now on my Twitter account.
So God didn't hand it down from above. God listened to the people.
Always.
So Can you tell us anything about yourself? We're not going to try to unmask you, although we will talk about guesses. But tell us about, are you in the industry? Do you work in ad tech? Or are you just kind of a random housewife bored in the Midwest who follows us? What's going on?
I've been in the industry, I'd say, since 2009. I would say publisher side, selling to agencies for a few years, and then move more into the technology side of the business. I've been here quite some time and have seen so many different trends repeating themselves over the last few years. So it's almost deja vu sometimes.
Right. We want to hear some prognostication, but let's still focus on the persona. Okay. So what are the guesses that everyone says? Everyone says Terry Kawaja. Everyone says Matt Barish. People say me, but hopefully this podcast will dissuade people to me. I'm not such a great audio editor. I could accomplish this. What's your reaction to the people try to guess who you are?
Mostly it's been Matt.
Mostly Matt.
People have told me, I know it's you, Matt. And I tell them things like, look, I can't chat, right now I'm in a meeting in New York, but I could be sitting in an office in LA. I steal his photos from Instagram and post them on Twitter and act like I'm there. But I've had Matt, I've had Ari Stein from, I think, Pandora XM. I've had Shiv from New Up Digital.
That's a good one.
Right. That's a good guess.
So,
It's definitely not Terry. I think we could all agree it's not Terry because Terry wants the spotlight. He doesn't want a pseudo-anonymous account.
my memes are better. We message each other, and I feel like I'm his QA for a lot of his parodies.
Yeah, he loves to he does do a quick early look for some of his parodies to people. And I think
great.
that Matt Barish is funny because he's never been on this pod, but he's been mentioned. We should have a running ticker of how often Matt Barish is mentioned on this podcast versus how often like Elon Musk is mentioned, because it'd be pretty close.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually. His name comes up. He is the ad tech socialite, so it makes sense.
So ATG, pseudonymous accounts are interesting. Oftentimes they're troll accounts. And one of the things that I think is cool about your account is you're a troll. It's not all negativity. It's not all biting.
No.
It's not all like cutting, companies or people or ideas down.
No.
You have this like good balance of being, funny and, poking fun deservedly at some things, but also being generally positive and like going a step further, like trying to be helpful. Like you tweet out job listings, you ask for people, who follow you, hey, send me your job listings. Where did this idea for the persona and balancing the troll with the positivity come from?
I think in the end, we're all normal people. And I think as just a moral compass for myself, I like helping people in general. So I think as a person, I like seeing people around me succeed. So I think first and foremost, that's the most important thing to me in my life. I want people to shoot to the top and do well in their life. So when I see layoffs happening, there's a self need and satisfaction of just seeing people getting a job and reducing that stress that they have in their life. On another side, I love this industry. It's been a long time. I've been doing this for so long that at some point it's all I know. And so the future of it is actually very important to me and to my future. So on the selfish side, I want it to grow and prosper as much as possible.
So it sounds like you're definitely a New Testament God, not an Old Testament God.
I am a New Testament God, except for, the apocalypse. But we're not going to go there today.
Yeah, EdTech Revelations will be the next account.
Exactly.
Just to double click on that, right? So it's interesting in that there's examples of you helping people, trying to help people. I'm sure just with, now increasingly the reach of the account, you've probably, gotten people jobs or early sort of like boosted their signal, but you are anonymous. So you get no credit personally for this. So this is like the purest of intentions, because at the end of the day, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows who to assign credit to. So it's like,
Right.
So how do you think about that? Right? Is this just like purely out of wanting to do good in the world? Do you feel like ad tech God ATG has a bigger mission, has like a future doing something else? Like, Just like riff on that a little bit.
Just recently, I started to think what this could turn into, and I think as I started seeing more and more followers and seeing the people that I was able to get employed at good companies too. I think there are 9 or 10 people at this point that I've helped just directly with getting them a job. I think we need a resource like that in the market. Like, I love recruiters and I love LinkedIn, but you and I both know that a lot of this industry is built on relationship and trust and referrals. And I think there's something I can do with that to help drive a better environment for job seekers overall.
So you have an idea for something in the talent arena that's connected to the account. Like, I know you posted a job board or something like that.
Less talent. So I think talent will be an element of it. I think it'll be a combination of helping startups find the right resources that they need, whether they be an initial free trial from established companies that they could use during their first, 6 to 12 months while they're bootstrapped. It could also be job posts that are hard to find and or very niche, and being to provide a platform for job seekers to locate those jobs.
Got it. Yeah.
Let's just say it's a full platform that I'm working on.
I think prior to the past couple of years, the idea of a pseudonymous account being able to build a business would be laughed at. But like,
Right.
with the advent of, just like everything. So it's whether it's Reddit accounts or like, Web3 anons or, just like some of these, I mean, frankly, I pay for a Substack and I have no idea who the author is. I think that the opportunity to build a biz with no one knowing your name is real, which is pretty mind blowing, but I think it's real.
I was just going to suggest that you could see a future where this persona is an AI. There's nothing to say that you're actually a human being. We could be talking to a computer right now.
Who says I'm not Elon Musk?
Could be
True. Speaking of, I think it was last week or maybe the week before. I try not to spend too much time on Twitter. Your account just started exploding, and you were posting charts of like how many thousands of followers you got like that day. What the hell happened?
I announced my acceptance as CEO of Twitter.
Okay. We're gonna get to the news. Let's not get
And it
too
went
ahead of
wild.
ourselves.
And I'm not sure. I've been checking. A lot of the accounts are active, which I found great. Some of the accounts looked a little sketchy, and some of them were verified. So I think it was just a combination of maybe how the algorithm works. There was a little bit of a boost of users, and then I started getting recommended to other users, which just scaled. But now it's tiered off and flattened out.
Do you think you got caught on like the Discover page for a new Twitter CEO, and maybe your tweet got pretty high on that?
I think so. I think something like that may have happened. I triggered something.
It was like right
not-
conversation, right time, probably tagging the right accounts. There's probably something there.
Yeah. Something in the algorithm
not
caught my
to
account.
not to make this about me, but the way I got my first real boost of Twitter followers was when Business Insider made a list of the 100 people you should follow on Twitter in media, and I was actually listed like number 18 ahead of Rupert Murdoch. So I don't know what they were thinking, but that took me from like a couple hundred followers to like 10,000 in a day. It was a little nuts.
It's incredible.
But those were the good days. Let's talk about the industry and prognostication. A pretty open-ended question would be, what trends are you seeing that you think are interesting in ad tech in general?
I'm seeing the entry into connected TV from non-conventional connected TV companies.
Okay.
I'm hearing more and more of mobile app solutions entering the CTV space.
Okay.
I'm hearing a lot of consolidation happening, hearing the number of apps being reduced and being consolidated because the user experience is not the greatest right now across streaming platforms. I think we're starting to see more audience-focused buying, which is challenging in this space.
Can we talk about that second one? You said more apps entering. Are you suggesting that companies that are traditionally mobile are moving into CTV or something?
Yes, in my day-to-day job, I speak to a multitude of companies. It's just part of my role. And I'm hearing companies that historically did not dabble in connected TV and were highly focused on mobile business seem to be interested in getting into the CTV space using the data that they have in place. It's kind of interesting to see what they're doing.
Yeah, that was kind of something that was a hypothesis of mine for years, was that if you had a mobile SDK that was broadly distributed, you might want to think about CTV because it's kind of the same tech. And I remember speaking to executives in MoPub about it before they sold, and they kind of poo-pooed the whole thing and said, like, no, it's totally different. It's different audiences, different advertisers, different everything. They didn't do it, obviously, but it's an opportunity, and the app world is kind of flattening out, so it makes sense to invest.
I think a lot of these companies also owe it to their shareholders. So you look at the non-conventional CTV companies, they're trying to diversify revenue streams.
Right.
If you take a look at, even the supply side platforms and demand side platforms in a market with some headwinds, they're looking for growth. And so they're starting to dabble into each other's business to try to capture more budget. So it makes sense that diversification during this type of market is happening.
Right. It also could be interesting on the creative side. Like if you think about a mobile company like Unity that has incredible authoring tools as well
Right.
as ad tools, bringing that to CTV could be pretty innovative.
Absolutely.
So why don't we pause at this point, take a break, and come back and do the news of the week, because there's quite a bit of news, and we'll hear what AdTech God's perspective is on the latest comings and goings. So we'll be back in a second.
Great.
This Marketecture podcast is sponsored by Adelaide. Remember Where's Waldo? He was 100% viewable, but still awfully hard to find. Your digital ads are like Waldo, viewable, but in a sea of distractions. You need to move beyond viewability. Adelaide helps brands like Mars, Audi, Colgate, and the NBA measure media quality and drive better performance by optimizing campaigns programmatically with attention data. Adelaide's metric, AU, is available on nearly every major DSP and SSP, making it easy to leverage attention metrics. Get a free Waldo was viewable t-shirt at adelaidemetrics.com/Waldo. So the big news this week, we missed it by our recording deadline last week, so there's a little bit old news at this point, but will still very relevant to this topic, which is Linda Yaccarino becoming the CEO of Twitter. So Linda is the currently, or was the chief business officer at NBCU. I think she was president of NBCU was her title. And it was announced last week and sort of abruptly announced, and she actually had to leave NBC abruptly and missed the upfronts the next day. And so this is kind of an interesting topic. I think probably we've all met Linda at some point. I met her when I was still at Comcast. Eric, do you want to start with your sort of hot take on this?
So I don't know Linda well at all. I've met her a couple of times. She's extremely impressive. And I think, a CEO job and, arguably like, one of the most important CEO jobs in tech is great for her. So like, I'm super happy as a fan, from the sidelines. I think, I think it's an interesting selection by Elon, right? And, the sort of nuances of how he explained the division of labor to me was quite interesting, right? So, check me on this one. But it's like, me, Elon, I'm going to own product and tech. As CEO, Linda is going to oversee everything with a strong focus on sales, marketing, and hiring. So was that how he explained it?
I think he used the phrase business operations, which didn't sound great to me.
Got it. Okay. Well, I think that could also be Elon's
theory.
Yeah, everything but the product and the tech. So I think it's a couple things. So number one, as CEO, are you the CEO if you don't own product and tech? Yeah, that's question. That's question number one. And then question number two is, I think as a business person, as a connector to the advertising industry, as a revenue oriented executive, you're probably not going to get any better than Linda Yaccarino. Like full stop. The question is that all that Twitter needs right now? Yes, they've had like a precipitous decline in revenue, and her ability to bring brands back, I don't think is the question at all. The real question is that what Twitter needs, or does Twitter need more product, more marketing, more of the sort of like other side of this that Linda may be a great person to hire and build the team for, or is that going to be a point of tension because that's going to be something that ultimately Elon wants to own and oversee.
Yeah, well said. ATG, you have your own point of view on this?
I don't know her personally, but I know of her. And I think she's someone that has a great presence in the market. I think Twitter does need diversification in their product. I think at this point, the Twitter 2.0 vision that Elon has is incredible. Now, whether they're able to pull that off would be, call features, shopping functionality, tweeting video functionality. I think there's something there, but brand perception is also a challenge over what's happened the last couple of years. So I think she has a challenge ahead of her related to getting those brand dollars back in.
Yeah, I think she's obviously well suited to bring the brand dollars back
Absolutely.
in, but they're only going to come if the product's right and the users are there and it's safe. And she has a lot of things going against her in this job. And I totally agree with what Eric said. To what extent are you really the CEO if you don't control product?
To be clear, I think if somebody can do it, she can do it. The question is just with, and again, this could be a nuance with the way that Elon explained this, and I could be reading too much into this. Will she be able to like direct the product evolution in the way that's going to allow the ad business to scale? That's the little thing that maybe could be reading too far into.
I made a tweet about this, but I'll just kind of summarize my thought. What if I could prognosticate that Linda will get there a couple months in? She'll say our key problem for bringing back advertisers is we need more video. We need it to be auto on, so video on Twitter is muted by default. There's not a lot of algorithms. They're small. They're not full screen by default. Those are the sort of things that stand in the way of making it a bigger business. She'll effectively have to convince Elon as the head of product that those are worth investing in and are worth changing the user experience. And he may not agree. He may want to go a different direction on the product. So where do you end up when you're in that situation? It seems like sort of a recipe for frustration.
Yeah, related. He's changed, or seems to be changing his tune on advertising in general, with him saying that Tesla is going to experiment with doing some advertising, which again could be a step in the direction that folks might want to see to give Twitter, the ad product, the ad business, the best chance of success.
You think he'll start?
So you're saying he's just going to basically funnel money from one of his companies to the other?
Yes. He wasn't specific, but that could be one way.
The big problem that Twitter has is also going to be attracting talent, notwithstanding Linda, taking the gold ring here. When Linda wants to bring in more people, imagine you're on the other side of that conversation and it's like, Linda, I trust you. I want to work for you. But how do I know I'm going to be paid? How do I know I'm not going to be interfered with? How do I know my severance will be paid if it doesn't work out? What's the stock worth? It's a big uphill climb given the drama at Twitter since it was taken over last year. Let's move on. Let's talk about a big conference this week. There were two big conferences. There's Programmatic I/O in Vegas, and there was Terry Quadra's Luma DMS conference in New York. Eric and I were at Luma. We hung out together and just took the praise of everyone walking by, telling us how much they love their this podcast. So if we saw you, we appreciate it. We appreciate your continued loyalty. Please press the subscribe button and leave us a good comment. Anyhow, So I thought it was a great conference. I thought the content was really good. If you, in between all the lip syncing and the crazy nonsense, the slides that Terry puts together and the guests he put together, really high level, executive level content. It's an invite only conference that's always sold out. So, really kind of a highlight of the conference season for me. Eric, what do you think?
It was great as always. The team at Luma did a great job. There are a few things to call out here. The first was he announced a transition at the firm. There's been a bit of news about this. Business Insider covered it, but his three former partners are no longer with the firm, and he promoted Connor, who was an early guest of this pod and a friend of the pod, and cranks out a lot of content that we quote all the time. Elevated Connor to partner, which was deserved, and I think a really nice moment because he's got so many fans that were in attendance, and I think broadly within the industry that it was really nice to see. So that was a good moment. Number two, what I like to see is that they kick off with I think they call it the state of digital, but basically an overview of all things ad tech and the key trends, and touch a little bit about what's going on from a sort of investing and M&A standpoint. So I think the big trends, no surprise, are the rise of the first party ad nets, right? The Eric Seufert, everyone is an ad net theme. I think that continues to be a big one. Retail media of all types. This trend towards horizontality, right?
Horizontality, yeah.
Yeah, collapsing of SSPs, DSPs, sort of continued evolution around data and identity in clean rooms, and I think the big theme this year that was the new theme was around AI. So I think they were good. All the stuff that we've been talking about on the pod. It's a weird one for Luma because this is traditionally a deal making event. So a ton of our CEOs were there, a bunch of corp dev people from various large companies are there, but there's not a lot of deal making going on. And they sort of noted it in the presentation that the market is effectively frozen. But for some of the PE firms and financial sponsors that are lurking. So it was a little bit more of just sort of relationship building and conversations. And there were some interesting breakouts. I sat in on one that I was particularly excited about, which was creative AI. Ari, you led a panel around optimization, which I didn't attend. But,
Right.
I'd actually like to get your take on it. And I think attendance was great. And, like, to your point, we were hanging out together. It's kind of funny when we're together in person. More people came up and asked to be on the pod than asked me for investment.
Right.
Which was an interesting change. And I think
They're going to hate me right now. And I have a meme for that. I'm ready to post it.
Amazing. Amazing. How was your session, by the way?
It was great. It was packed. It was called Optimization 2.0, and the thesis was like that the new world is coming, cookies are gone, and how do we optimize? What was interesting was it definitely felt like the parable about feeling the elephant, because Mark from Adelaide on the panel, he was talking all about user experience and time and engagement, and then the woman from Teads was talking about creative and publisher quality. And we had Joey Truss from Google, who's on the Sandbox team, much more talking about the standards and how that could be implemented and who's going to do it. So in a sense, it was like 10 different topics shoved into one. And I had to kind of weave it together to give some practical feedback to folks, which is challenging. I think we're in for a world of challenges where a lot of things are going to change on the date that the cookies actually disappear. ATG, maybe you have some points on that.
I do. I sense that we're trying to fight the lesser of two evils. In one aspect, want to deprecate cookies. We're trying to create a better product across the board of how to target, retarget, and reach our audience. At the same time, in my personal opinion, there seems to be a lot of talk about TikTok in the market, what is and what is not true, what is and what is not being passed. And I think our focus needs to be on how do we maintain the privacy guidelines for our users, respect their choices, and target better. And I think having those controls in place can solve a lot. But the way we're going at things seems to be all or nothing strategy. And I think we need to find middle ground.
And practical ground. I just worried like the day Chrome flips the switch, there's a lot of companies that are just going to start losing money on that day, and they're really just not prepared. Or if they are prepared, they're prepared in sort of an abstract way, and like the reality is going to be kind of different. Feels a little bit like GDPR. Like we all knew it was coming for a long time, but then it actually came. So, Eric, were you in the creative AI session? I know I was. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think Shelley Palmer did a really good job of articulating what I touched on at the last pod with Joanna about, like, I just wake up stressed about like, things that I missed in AI. I think he did a far better job of sort of articulating the speed at which things are going. It was a really good panel. Diana from Constellation, Omar from Rembrandt portfolio company, CEO of VidMob, CEO of Celtra, and I think one other. My takeaway is that unless you are AI native,
Right.
Omar Rembrandt being the one, right? Sort of a generative AI startup from day zero. it's a lot of like talking and a lot of like, here's what the future is going to look like. And, some of the platitudes, frankly, that, you read on Twitter and the internet versus, what is really being done by, I think, some of these larger platforms that, need to adapt to an AI first era. It was a very, sort of like wise statement, but somebody said something to the effect of, everybody's concerned about AI and jobs, and how you should think about it is, the AI is not going to take your jobs. The what did the person say? The people that understand AI are going to take your jobs.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was a good statement, but like I want to hear what these big companies are doing to adapt to what is the most important thing out there. And I came away feeling that startups are going to start to eat companies' lunches when it comes to the generative stuff.
Yeah, Diana from Constellation and Sandy had an interesting back and forth. Constellation is a creative vendor that specializes in regulated industries, so pharma, auto, and other things like that. So they make sure the creatives are compliant before running. She was pretty negative on AI because of that reason. And Sandy, the moderator, was of the opinion that sure, you can't use the off-the-shelf LLM for that sort of thing. If you train it on the regulations, it would be effective. And they definitely did not see eye to eye on that. And I thought it was kind of a really interesting nuance.
Yeah, no, that was an interesting. It wasn't a nuance. I think it was a debate to be polite, like a strong difference of opinion. And Dan is amazing.
Also, Marketecture contributor Eric Suford has his weekly post this week. I think it was called the generative AI inflation bubble or something like that. I'm misnaming it. And his hypothesis, just to be brief, was that in a system like Facebook, your generative AI will be used aggressively, and you'll have a lot more creatives and a lot more ways of creating video and other assets. And therefore, they may kind of stuff the pipe and make the learning process more expensive and more scarce. So therefore, maybe prices will go up. It's kind of a nuanced argument, but it's kind of interesting.
Very interesting. I spend all my time trying to figure this stuff out, and we're deep in investing in companies in this space, and feels like this is an area that some of these larger companies are either going to need to like aggressively hire for in order to compete, or start to get acquisitive.
So let's talk about the upfronts. We don't have a lot of upfront news. Netflix was one interesting note. So first of all, I think Netflix canceled their in-person upfront because of the writer's strike. But when they did their virtual one, they gave some interesting data points. So they said there's 1 million consumers so far on the ad tier, that 25% of new signups choose the ad tier. Also at the show, Rich from Lightspeed said some interesting things about how the advertising business was actually accretive to Netflix, where the advertising consumers are making as much or more money than they would on the paid low tier. And Peter Naylor, who's the CRO, I guess, of the ad group, I don't know his exact title, but he's in charge of the ad group at Netflix. He also said some very positive things about how well it was going. Maybe ATG, you want to give us your take on this?
I think they have the right strategy. I had a conversation with someone about this last week. I think as a publisher, Netflix sits in a very unique position. They have a massive paid subscriber number, right? But launching this ad-supported tier creates diversity in revenue, and they're controlling the amount of ads being served to their users, which is then justifying a higher CPM. And they are, in essence, creating a media product and not an ad tech product. And a lot of the streaming world is increasing the ad frequency and, in essence, creating such a large pool of supply that doesn't justify high CPMs
Right.
because they need to fill. What he's doing is keeping the ads limited and justifying a higher CPM. And I think, in at least what I see as the short term, the 24 to 36 months, in my view, it's a fantastic strategy to pull brand dollars into the platform.
Yeah, the someone asked me just the other day if I thought at any point the trade desk gets into that inventory. Do they have any interoperability? And my answer, I'd like to hear your point of view on this, is as long as it's going well without programmatic, there's no need to do that. But at some point, you hit limits to how much you can grow your media business in different geographies or different types of customers. And Trade Desk would probably be the first call of the companies you might want to let in. It sounds like you wouldn't agree with that. You would think like, no, they're a great business. They'll go it alone.
I think with the number of users they have today, their position in market, they won't need to go into pure programmatic. This could be sold as like a pure media product. I think moving forward as the user base scales and the inventory volume scales, they will most likely need to work with someone like a Trade Desk or expand their team into more programmatic or, I guess, agency direct or brand direct sales efforts. I don't see open exchange happening for them anytime soon.
No.
Probably some programmatic guaranteed direct with brands.
Yeah, it's the dance where you want to control it, and then your customers are the agencies, and they're demanding, and they want measurement, they want verification, they want ad serving, eventually they want programmatic, and you just have to kind of, as a publisher, you try to fight that off as long as you can, unless you need it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, there's just been like a long history in this space of media companies when there's, a new innovation or a new monetization channel, differentiating by saying, no, we won't do that. Right. So like, I'm sure in the Wayback Machine, you can find examples of, publishers saying they wouldn't work with ad networks.
Yeah.
Media companies saying they would never transact programmatically, and
Pork bellies
are standing exactly what it was. And yeah, digital dimes and linear dollars, like whatever. They always go programmatic. They always go into these channels because, to ATG's point, like you got to grow. You got to be able to serve your customers. You need to expand into these other markets, and it's the only way to do it. And ultimately, all the stuff is going to be transacted programmatically, and it doesn't necessarily matter, how the means of transaction happens. If you're getting this TPMs and the control that you want.
Shortly after Netflix announced their ad program, they did leak out or had in their deck that you would be able to buy the inventory through Xander's buy-side invest. But I don't know if anyone's ever done that. Like, that might have been a theoretical thing more than an actual thing, because I think the inventory is very high sell-through rate and very sparse at this point. 1 million consumers is great, but it's tiny. So my guess is that you're not really able to buy this on Xander Invest.
I don't think they'll have a problem in the short term. I think saying programmatic is very general. It's just the pipe. So in the end, do they move towards programmatic guaranteed? Sure. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
Is there any news out of programmatic IO? We've just been talking about Netflix and DNS this whole time.
I didn't really see that much on the tweets and whatnot. I didn't go, obviously. I don't want to ask ATG if he was there or not there, because that'll help narrow down who he really is. So, but it didn't seem like it had a lot of buzz this year.
I have not heard much. I heard more about DNS on Twitter and saw quite a bit of tweets flying around.
Yeah, it was hard to avoid at DMS when they started singing "Don't Stop Believin'." I was like, it was a little cringy. And I actually went home, told my teenage kids about it, and they didn't believe me. I was like, no, really, these bankers that make millions of dollars, they were singing "Don't Stop Believin'." That's how they get their clients. And my kids are like, Dad, you're an idiot.
I thought it was great. I was dying. Like, I'm sure there's video footage or some pictures from the professionals of me like falling out of my chair. I thought it was great.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. So AdTech God, thank you so much for being here. Do you want to leave us with any parting words? How should people interact with you? They obviously follow you on Twitter. But what else do you want to tell our audience?
Stay positive. I think we've seen a lot of change in the ad tech ecosystem this year. I think we're going to see some more. Just keep helping each other, and I think we'll continue to grow over the next 12 to 24 months. Those headwinds are coming, but stay positive, keep working hard, and be creative.
All right, that's a very positive message. So thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna do one more plug. One more plug for the Marketecture AI, because I'm just getting people reaching out to me that they're using it and it's getting great results. It's still free. We may put it behind a paywall at some point, but go to marketecture.tv and there's a tab for the AI bot. All right, Eric and ATG, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for subscribing to Marketecture. New interviews are added every week at marketecture.tv and your favorite podcasting app.